as deadly protest over social media ban and corruption elapses. We also see that Nepal Prime Minister had resigned yesterday, Tuesday, as a violent protest against the controversial social media ban and widespread of government corruption spread across the country. We see that the unrest, led largely by the young demonstrators, intensified after police opened fire on the crowd Monday, killing 19 people. Although the government lifted the ban on Tuesday, the outrage over the death and long-standing accusation of political corruption continued to fuel the demonstrations. By late evening, tens of thousands of protesters were still on the streets, setting government offices and politician home ablaze, storming key facilities and blocking major roads. Army helicopters evacuated ministers to safer locations as mob surrounded administrative building in the Katamadu. We see that protesters also touched the Singadura at the historic seat of the government's ministries and police station, while others waved the national flag and chanted against the political elites. Many pointed raising unemployment, corruption, and inequality, as well as constructing their struggles with privilege enjoyed by the children of powerful politicians. Prime Minister Prasad Oli announced that the resignation amidst the mounting criticism. The president accepted his decision, appointing Oli as the head of the caretaker government until the successor is chosen, though his authority and whereabouts remains uncertain. The protesters, initially sparked by the frustration over the blocking of social media platforms, have since exposed a deep resentment over government failures in the nation waged between China and India. This is a very, very big story, and
I think I'd like us to quickly just look at the video.
Yeah.
Okay. Because this is what we're going to be
Talk
expanding
about
the conversation from here. And I'd just like us to, see the video and have a feel of what is really happening in Nepal. Okay, so you can just see the level of disarray that's happening right in Nepal. And this just brings us right into our discussion for today, because something happened. These are Gen Zs. I mean, when they say Gen Zs, it means we were born between 1997 and 2012. And so what's happening is that they are holding their governments, in their words, accountable for banning social media, for banning X, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and they had to find a way to let their grievances known. And so they started out as like a peaceful protest until a 12-year-old was killed. Yes, in the course of this struggle, and it escalated, the whole tension, and the citizens now started marching in their large numbers to the parliament, where they had to, in fact, it was so bad that the Prime Minister of Nepal has now resigned, and some of the protesters, as a result, are now targeting properties of their political office holders. They are ensuring that as long as you're a politician in Nepal, you either resign or we destroy things. That is how we want to send our message. And I think the message has gotten to the people in power, because for the Prime Minister to resign, that's telling something. That's showing that, okay, we don't want to do this anymore. And they've even, lifted the ban on social media. So apart from the whole crisis happening, I just see something in this. I see how when people stand unified for something, they can get the result they want. These people, just like they have different tribes in Nepal. They have people from different, there are people also who practice different religion as well. And so you see that religion wasn't the problem for the young people. They just came together and they wanted to make their message known. Their tactics or the strategy of becoming violent is not the way out. It's not proper, in my thought. I'd rather a peaceful protest, but is that unity and uniformity of purpose that has made the government to say, okay, I'm not just stepping down, we are lifting this ban. And I'm saying this because we have doctors in Nigeria striking, right? Striking.
Actually.
And sometimes when the strike happens, you start hearing later that, oh, some people are going behind to do some certain things, and then there is no uniformity of purpose. And this one is saying, I'll not join, I'll stay back, you know. It tells a whole lot of things, and unity is standing out for me. So as much as I do not condone or appreciate the fact that the protest has gotten violent, because many innocent lives are going to be lost, many properties are going to be destroyed, even though they say they're targeting properties of politicians. Should you target the properties of politicians? Because some of those places are offices where the citizens work, so it will affect everybody. When protests like this happen, it doesn't just bite the politician, it affects everybody. But I get it, they're trying to send a message across. And that uniformity of purpose, I think it could have been, achieved without violence. But then again, they are young people, and you can see them, running into premises, running into properties, just destroying it. And as at today, this morning, they've set fire on the parliament just to let them know this is where we stand. Wow, Deborah.
I always say this, speaking from the strike that the doctors are actually threatening to in Nigeria. The government should not wait till all of this happen. Like we said, there was loss of life in that particular protest. And
now lives, over 20 lives.
Lives now, not even just a life. And speaking, one person's life is very important, and you are held accountable for it as a government. Every life is accounted under your regime as far as you sit on that seat for that period of time. So if you would see that there are ways that this can be reduced or ways that this can be solved, why wait till it gets to this extent where lives have been lost before you now listen or hear the cry of your people? I'm very sure they didn't just start becoming violent immediately when they started their protests. It's very possible that they started from a peaceful protest before it got to this extent. And it's very possible that they have the reason why they got to this extent. And if you look at it very well, they had to get to this extent before the government started listening to them. Must we get to this point before you listen to us? That's the question. Must we get to this point before you listen to us? Try to avoid all of this.
I think that's a very key point you're mentioning, and this comes to me as a global lesson for everybody.
Yeah.
What lessons can we draw from what is happening in Nepal, as other countries, other African countries? We must learn from what... The truth is, I always tell people, there's a level where you push somebody to the wall and the person gets to the extreme. I mean, when you push me to this wall right now and I get here, there's nowhere to go further anymore. I can bounce back.
You have to bounce. You would bounce
So
back.
I tell people that we have to be very careful about the things we do. There's a way you can suppress people, maltreat people, and then they're speaking up, especially as a nation. They're speaking up subtly, one protest here and there, students are clamoring, lecturers are clamoring there, people are saying this, farmers are doing their own, from different stratas they are complaining and nothing is done. It gets to a point where they get to the wall and then they bounce back. So this is a global lesson for especially African countries, which is our core. We must listen to what the citizens say. We do not have to wait for it to escalate all the time. People are speaking. So we need a government that is not just humane, but has its ear on the ground. For instance, in Nigeria, where we very much practice federalism, you see that government is, delegated. You have the local you have the local government chairperson, you have the councillors in wards, you have the governor, you have the House of Assembly leader represent. You have like different people who are doing one thing, representing a place. That should even be a strategy to ensure that you're actually listening.
Yeah.
Because people would talk. People are speaking through your reps. People are speaking through the people that are institutionalized as leaders. If you keep ignoring and not listening, it will get to a point where you may no longer be able to contain it.
Of course.
I give another illustration. If you cook for a community with a very big pot, they can eat. The whole community can eat. But if the whole community cook for you as an individual, can you finish that food? You can't. So we play this as a problem. As a leader of any African country, you can cause the trouble, you can make decisions, and it will go round. I mean, people will either obey or not obey or face the consequences. But imagine that all of those people decide to wake up, stand their ground and decide or demand their right and say, no, this can't go on anymore. You will resign. You will not be able to face that heat. That's the truth. So it might sound like a joke that if a community cooks for you as a person, you can't eat it. If you cook for the community, they can finish the food. They'll even ask for more. So this is a global lesson. And I'm hoping that the African leaders are learning from this.
And listen. Because when you were talking, I was trying to relate this to so many issues going on in Nigeria that can actually lead to something like this. And one of which is the TUC threatening to strike and also protest. And the government trying to say they are not saying that they are imposing a 5% tax yet, that they're introducing it. Now the TUC is saying, we do not want your introduction. What we're saying is we don't want it at all, because this will affect every area of Nigerian sector. Also, to point out the issue of the senator from representing the Kogi point, where that Senator Natasha not being allowed to actually appear in the Senate House. And so many of her people, if you looked at it months ago, so many of our people came out to actually speak that these people are actually in their right to be represented in the Senate House. And if our representative is not there, it's just like saying you're sidelining the whole, because now it's going beyond her herself. You're sidelining the whole Kogi state, that they should go and sit, that they are not allowed to. Because you think she's not entering, of course you're saying the whole of Kogi state is not entering, and it's a problem. This is something that can actually still lead to protest and coming out of this youth saying, no, we want to be. So the government should actually look into most of these things, like you said. Our leaders, please, strike or protest should not be the reason why you would answer to pleads. You should not get to that point before you listen to the citizens. If we are running a government for the people, by the people, of the people, we must actually listen to the people. It's a very, very important key in this particular government. So please listen to the people before we get to this point and start losing lives like the people of the Nepal.
I don't know how to feel about this, but when the government starts making some regulations on some things and a lot of things are not put into place, this is the kind of chaos that it can lead to. You wake up and you ban social media in a country that has young people. What do you expect? Because you can regulate the way people express themselves by saying, set out some guidelines. Oh, you don't say some things, don't post some pictures. Try to, let's have a way of verifying stories to ensure that it's true. Yeah. There's some things that you can just do. I mean, for instance, Meta does that a lot. There's some things you want to post online and it's regulating, it's telling you, no, you can't post it. There's some words you want to type, you can't type. So that's the kind of regulation that I'd expect. But ultimately blocking people from speaking up.
Also, so many social media.
Banning them from having access to social media. That's a whole lot for a country that's very active with young people. I mean, we already know that young people make up the major fragment of our population in the world. And there's no country without them. The economies of every country today is even thriving because they have young people who are now embracing technology, who are now, going into a lot of things. If you look at Africa, for instance, many of the huge technical or technological leaps, it's happening because young people are now diversifying into technology. They're now diversifying into AI, embracing the new wave of the moment. And so if you're telling them you won't have access to your source of income, because there are people who work remotely. There are people who have to rely on using social media to work. You're taking food from their mouth. What kind of reaction would you be expecting?
Of course.
So this is it. This kind of reaction is what would happen. And what does this do? It dents the image of that country. It makes the country unsafe for people. It scares investors away, because any country that has an issue of political unrest, it scares investors away. I'm not sure anybody would want to come into a country that is not safe, that is not secure, that they have the government and the people at loggerheads. It doesn't work anywhere.
Let's also note that beyond beyond the media platform, social media is another way for the people to talk. So you trying to ban social media is saying, we don't want to hear your voices anymore.
Yeah.
So you shutting them up beyond even business transactions. This is the easiest way to hear information from one person and get information beyond, like I said, the media. You hear information and information spreads very fast from the social media platforms. And you now saying you want to, not just one. It's the fact that they did not come, you didn't bring down one social media platform. You brought down so many social media platforms. It's like saying you don't want to hear people's voices anymore. You're tired of hearing their voices. You should keep quiet.
And of course, I mean, they'd want to say there are countries that ban some social media platforms. There are some countries where, for instance, TikTok is not working there.
Yes, of course.
They have some countries where Facebook is not working there. But they now provide other social mediums.
You have other alternatives.
They have alternatives for things to work, for communication to take place. The world has gone digital, and you do not want to risk having people still act like, oh, then the Stone Age. I'm not sure. I'm not sure we want that. We want to have people who can communicate, who can have access to information when they want, who can air out their mind. Because the truth is, a lot of people use social media to hold the government accountable. They use social media to tell their stories, to sell, to make businesses, to earn a living, and to hold the government accountable. And so when you are trying to shut social media, it means you're not just shutting me up. You're refusing to be transparent in your policies. You're refusing to answer the critical questions that citizens will ask you through the only platform we have. Because it's not like we live in a world where we have the government interact with citizens every day, or citizens even have access to speak to their leaders as often as possible. And so the only way sometimes is, if my governor makes a post on Twitter, I can easily go. For instance, I remember that my governor, Mr. Peter Mba, he made a post recently, and some people went under the comment to ask him, okay, brilliant, you've achieved this, brilliant, how about this other project, how about this other project? And the truth is, what all of that does to the governor is that there are things that he may have skipped, he may have forgotten, and it's very human to do those things. You're not robot, you're not superhuman.
Of course.
And so, but when people start reminding him, oh, you started a project in this community, what happened? It brings it back to memory that this is something that, oh, I started, I have to fix it. And it was very interesting to me because some people kept mentioning, in particular local government, and there was a project he had started that he did not complete there. And then the next thing I saw was that there were people who were actually awarded that contract, and they did not carry out that contract.
Yeah.
And so what happened? And then just recently I saw that the culprits, or those who were supposed to carry out that contract, have been arrested by the government. So it means that holding the government accountable has gotten easier. If his attention wasn't called on social media, I'm not sure that arrest would have been made, because people would be there blaming the governor for not doing his work. Meanwhile, he had delegated that function to people. The governor cannot be everywhere doing something. He had delegated that function to people. So it is on him to now check from time to time how far with this. But it is very normal that you may not remember all the time. So when the populace bring it to your attention that, oh, you're supposed to do this and you've not done this, what about this?
Yeah.
It clicks immediately. And I was so impressed. I just said, oh, this is a part of social media. Just imagine that they said people in Enugu State should not have access to social media. How will people have been able to air their grievances or tell the governor, this is the problem? But we have had that solution. And the people that have been arrested have promised to, either make refunds or fix that, do what they were supposed to do in that community. So that's the power of social media. Social media is very Powerful not just to entertain, not just to communicate, not just to educate, but to hold the government accountable. And this is what we want to see. This is what we are gunning for. And I don't want it to get to a point where we only use social media for mobilization, for protest. No. I want a situation where the government, even if it's a virtual town hall, because during, by 2027 now, for those in Nigeria, you'd realize that a lot of virtual town halls will happen. The government will become grassroots government. The government that doesn't get down to the grassroots will become grassroots government. It will now start telling you, oh, really, bring the definition of democracy by Abraham Lincoln and say, oh, we are for the people, we are by the people, we are this. And after that moment, it goes away from that. So the only way people really have to interact with their government, with their leaders, is through social media. So if you take that away, you're taking away my power. Because sometimes you've taken away the power through the votes. Yes, of course.
Do you want to take it?
So, I mean, we must look at these things. I don't want a situation where we have more African countries. We already have things happening in Uganda. We have things happening in Congo. We don't want it to keep happening. We have things happening in Burkina Faso. We don't want, Benin Republic. We do not want to keep seeing fight here and there. This, no. It will get. I don't want it to get to that point. So for now, let us use social media for good. If the government needs to hold virtual town hall meetings with the people, especially with the young people, because what they do not understand is that, well, you know, before they used to say those who lived before us are very dogged, but trust me, we have very dogged people now who are willing to die, but sometimes they're held back by their families. You hear a mother say, "Oh, you're the only son I have. Oh, you're the only daughter I have. Please don't do it." And so when you have all of those restraints, you tend to, oh, let me stay alive for my mother. But it will get to a point where none of those will matter.
Yes.
You would just want to launch out into the deep. And I'm sure that we do not want that as a government. We don't want that.
We do not want a replay of, Black Monday, known as the protest that happened during the NSAS. That was a very, very, very sad protest, and we lost a lot of lives. This is a story that tells to all African leaders coming together to actually look into this issue. And that's another thing. African leaders looking into one particular African issue. If this has become so serious in Nepal, other African leaders should stand up and actually look at it and say, okay, please, what can we do about it? And not just leave them and let them alone out of Africa. Because of while Africans, we can learn from what we can make amends, and we can also stop it, because we've not only lost in Poland, like here, if I'm correct, we've also lost an African life being lost. Poly is also an African life being lost. So generally, this is an African problem also, because if a whole country in Africa is losing a very large amount of people, of course, it affects all of us all. And like she has said, we should not wait till this gets to this point. Let's listen to the people, and let's not silence our people. There are ways to do this, to curb the situation. Yes, we know that the young people are going, wayward. Some young people are going wayward on social media platforms. There are ways to curb these particular situations, even without banning the whole social media platform. There are ways to curb these situations. There are ways to put them on strict adherence than just coming up and banning the whole social media.